I'm gonna wear this camera out and just restart it. I think it's about the 4th or 5th time I've restarted. Anyway, I was watching Junkyard on line last night, and he did a regulator in his car. Well, I don't know why, but it made me remember something that happened to me back in the 1970s. I moved to Florida in '72, and I think it was in '73 or '74. All I had was a motorcycle ride back and forth. I rode it from Kingsport, Tennessee, down to Jacksonville, Florida, and I only worked about a mile and a half from where I lived, but I'd get wet. I mean, it rained almost every day, and during the winter it was cold. Not in the mornings, but in the afternoons. Well, sometimes it's cold in the morning too. That wind coming off that east water, God, it was cold, especially in the middle of the night. But anyway, back to the story. I talked my brother-in-law into helping me buy a used car. So he took me down to a dealership friend of his that sold used cars. Buy here, pay here. First time I'd ever seen one. Of course, I'd never bought a car before. I was only 15 years old, or 16 maybe. And so he had to co-sign for me. Well, I bought one, and it was nothing special. I can't remember what I paid for it. But the engine sounded good and it drove good. To me it did. And it wasn't the first car I'd owned. I'd owned a couple of cars before that, but I just didn't have them in my name. In Tennessee, I lived so far back in the mountains that we never got bothered with the police. If you went to Kingsport, I would have probably got stopped. But I lived in the county, which is about 15 miles from Kingsport, and I was up on top of the mountains, so we really didn't have any police up there unless somebody called, and then it would be state or county. Well, I got the car home and everything, and I was dating a little girl down there. I wound up marrying her a couple of years, about a year later, I think we got married. And this is the car that I'm talking about. It's not exactly the same car. It looks a lot better than the one I had, believe me. Mine was green, but mine was kind of more of a green like this. I think that's a Ford GT Trino. Yeah, that's a GT. I I think I owned the car for about 3 years, and in that 3 years I wound up fixing had to put a radiator in it, had to repair the brakes 2 or 3 times on it because she couldn't keep her foot off the brake pad, pedal. She wore them out just as fast as I could put them on there, and I had to work on transmission, the flywheel. It was an automatic, and the ring gear broke loose from the flywheel, and I drove it until it wouldn't crank at all. But the first time I had trouble with it was me and my girlfriend. I had went and picked her up. We drove back to the apartment. We were going to the beach. Well, I hadn't had any trouble out of the windows on the car, and she rolled up her passenger window, and the window just fell out on the ground. She said, "Oh my God!" I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "The window just fell out." And I expected to go around there and find that window just shattered into a million pieces. I went around there and laid that glass on concrete and not a scratch on it. It didn't break. and there was no scratches. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I got to looking at it, and apparently the only thing that held that window in was the bottom track. And I can't remember if it had side posts or not, but anyway, it just fell out. Door may have been open too. And well, I just set it back in there and rolled it up tight. I said, before you get out, let me go over on the other side and I'll hold the door. I'll hold the window while you get out, and then I'll close the door. And that's the way I did it to the next week or whenever I got it fixed. But I was at work and I was talking to a friend of mine about it. He said, go down. He said, get you some silicone, clear silicone. And he said, make sure it's for fish tanks. He said, clean the glass. He said, clean it real good with alcohol, especially along that bottom. And he said, now make sure you put it in there the way you want it when you first put it in there. He said, you might be able to move it a little bit, but he said, if you don't wait too long, you can't. Well, I can't remember what I paid for the car. I can't remember what I paid for the silicone or anything. But anyway, I went down and got the silicone, hardware store. I filled that little track full of silicone, slapped that window in there and lined it up with a door frame, and closed the door, relined it again, closed it. And I didn't touch that door for 2 or 3 days, probably a week. Well, I thought it was about time to see it. I rolled the window down, rolled it back up. I said, well, I wonder how hard it'd be pulled out. You couldn't move that window. That window would not pull out. Now, it's not a regulator. It just made me remember that window. I've never had to do a regulator. I got lucky. I've never had to do one. And but man, I was lucky that day. I don't know where I'd gotten a window at, probably junkyard, but at that time I didn't know. I wound up marrying the girl, and when she was 9 months pregnant, I was underneath the car taking the transmission out because the ring gear on the transmission, the flywheel came loose, and I had gotten one and was swapping it out. Well, just as I got the transmission out, she hollered, Duke, Duke, what? My water broke. Do what? So I called an ambulance. The ambulance said, well, if her water's just broke, he said, it may be 2 days before she heads that baby. And he said, I'm not going to take her to the hospital. And my next door neighbor was in the living room talking to me. And he stood there and he said, you're not going to take her to the doctor? He said, no, we're not taking her to the doctor. He said, I'll take her. He said, just put her in my car. And I took some blankets, put over his front seat, and I sat in the back seat. And he drove her to the hospital, and she had that baby 18 hours later. But I didn't know an ambulance could refuse to take somebody to the hospital. But I don't know why I threw that in there, but I did. I wound up divorcing the girl 4 years later. We just couldn't get along. But that, when I saw a junkyard doing that regulator, it reminded me of that and how that window fell out but didn't break. I got lucky. But anyway, I just told him I told him in my message to him last night in the comments that I'd tell him the story about the window that I had trouble with. And that's really the first and last time I had trouble with a window. I've had them to lock up, and I had one window in a car. I did have it. I rolled up and it fell down the bottom of the door. I thought, what? And a rivet had came out of the track, and I put a pop rivet back in place. I had some pop rivets, and they fit perfectly. And I put that pop rivet back in that place, and never had any more trouble out of it. But it let that wind fall right down. I can't remember what kind of car it was on or anything, but I rolled the window up, got it about halfway up, and it sucker just slid right down the bottom of that door. And I can't think of any other time I've had trouble. I've not had any electric windows till I'll say the last 20 years, but I've never had trouble with one. Uh, so I guess that's about it. Let's see. Yeah, it's 10 minutes long, so that's plenty long enough to tell a story. Hope y'all enjoy it. If you do, like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. And if I watch your videos, I'll give you a thumbs up. If I watch your video all the way through, I'll give you a thumbs up. And I'll give you a like. And I will see you on the flip side. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel like getting out and working outside. It's been raining all day today, and I just haven't felt like it. So, catch you on the flip side. Bye.